Ben 10. Carnitrix without downsides. Chapter 41. It was noon the next day. The rust bucket was parked at a gas station, and after being filled with gas, Grandpa Max meticulously wiped and maintained it. Ben, Zach, and Gwen sat idly by. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh tilde. With the roar of engines, three bikers arrived on motorcycles, raised their laser guns, opened fire, and blasted the buildings on both sides, robbing money. Zach, let's go together, saving people is the priority. Ben quickly got up and decisively transformed. This time, Zach sat there, nodding slightly to Ben. I believe you can handle all of this. Whoosh. As light flickered, the figure of XLR8 suddenly appeared. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, the three bikers flew off their motorcycles and crashed heavily to the ground. They cried out, making sharp sounds, and their laser guns were gone. Now, Ben stood in the distance, stomping on the laser gun in his hand. You wait obediently for the police, or I'll make you pay. All of it, I'll listen to you. The biker leader raised her hands and spoke weakly. It's done. Ben's cool composure lasted less than 3 seconds. He smiled smugly and looked at Grandpa Max and the others. Suddenly, his expression froze, and his mask dropped. Mechadroids. The next moment, Zach turned and saw 3 small robots flying overhead. He almost instinctively tackled Gwen to the ground, and she cried out in pain. Ow, you're hurting me. The 3 small robots flew over their heads and rushed toward Ben. Zach, based on the traits these drones have demonstrated up to the first day you guys received the watch, is that they prioritize attacking people with the freaking watch. Gwen said to Zach, her face red. Sorry, Gwen, I just instinctively protected you. Zach showed a hearty smile, explaining with a slight apology. It's nothing. Gwen nodded quietly, then glanced at Zach's abdomen. Gasp. What's up with this guy? He has 8-pack abs now. You 3 stay put, don't move around, I'm going to deal with the freaks. Ben pretended to be fierce and warned the bikers, then rushed over to deal with the mechadroids. He moved agilely, deliberately circling around the 3 small robots, making them collide with each other. However, the 3 bikers slowly got up and quietly walked toward their motorcycles. There were other laser guns on the motorcycles. Oh no, the 3 of them want to ambush Ben. Gwen was startled and immediately raised her voice, wanting to warn him. Zach, however, lunged forward, arriving directly in front of the 3 bikers and blocking their way. What are you doing? Even a kid dares to block our way. The 3 bikers found it amusing and reached out to grab Zach's hair. Zach grabbed the outstretched hand, turned smoothly, used the strength in his back, and threw one biker over his shoulder. Bang. Then, he used both fists to take down the other 2 bikers. Bang. 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 The 3 bikers were beaten by him, a mere child, until they were almost on their knees begging for mercy. They felt not only physical pain but also humiliation. Being publicly beaten by a kid, how embarrassing. Oh my god, Grandpa Max's mouth hung open, dumbfounded. When did Zach learn martial arts? This is the same martial arts Grandpa uses against aliens, Gwen muttered, looking at Zach's figure with her mouth slightly open, thinking of Grandpa Max. Zach, without transforming, was as brave as Grandpa. After a short minute, Ben stopped, 3 destroyed mechadroids at his feet. Done. I'm done here too. Zach calmly waved his hand. Behind him, the 3 bikers slumped on the ground, trembling all over. After dealing with the situation, they kept their good deeds to themselves and drove off in the rust bucket. The police car and rust bucket passed each other. A group of police officers got out, handcuffed the 3 bikers, and removed their helmets. They were 3 girls. Rojo Smith, a robber, this time you'll be in for years, a police officer said mockingly, recognizing her. Rojo glared hatefully at the old rust bucket, gritting her teeth. It's all because of that kid, and that alien. Click. The police handcuffed the 3 and led them toward the patrol car. Just as they approached the pile of wreckage, tentacles suddenly shot out and wrapped around Luo Zhao and the other 2. At that moment, a cold voice whispered in Rojo's ear. Earthling, open your eyes, I am Vilgax. The rust bucket sped down the road, its body gleaming in the sunlight. Grandpa Max had really cleaned it well. Ben, oh, not bad. This time, Ben performed very bravely. Grandpa Max, Gwen, and the others rarely praised Ben. Ben grinned, hooked a cola with his tail, and brought it to his mouth. Hee hee, then Grandpa, can I get a bit more allowance? Haha, of course not. Grandpa Max said the cruelest words with a smile. PFF tilde. Alright. Ben could only give up helplessly. Bang. A loud noise came from a distance. Everyone instinctively looked back to see thick smoke rolling and flames rising from the direction of the gas station. Something bad seems to have happened. Grandpa Max turned on the hazard lights and stopped the old broken car. Let's go back and see. Ben opened the car door and decisively jumped out. Grandpa, why bother? I'll be right back. As he said this, there was already a hint of arrogance in his tone. He got carried away so quickly. Ben really can't take a compliment, Gwen said speechlessly. Whoosh. Ben's mask fell, and his body instantly turned into an afterimage. Zack closed the car door, a faint sense of unease in his heart. What was that explosion about? The gas station was engulfed in flames, reduced to a pile of rubble. Bodies lay scattered on the ground, some incomplete, and the police cars were burned down to nothing but charred frames. Rojo and the others walked unhurriedly out of the sea of fire. Their skin was deep red, their bodies fused with mechanical parts, already transformed into half-human, half-mechanical hybrids. I understand. Rojo listened to the voice in her mind, her expression triumphant. You also want to deal with that alien, so you'll tell us how to fight, how to take down that fooled alien. That's right, Earthlings. Vilgax's voice was cold yet oddly polite. He was already furious over the failure of the bounty hunters, and now his mechadroids had been completely destroyed. As a result, he had possessed these Earthlings through his machines, and now had no choice but to cooperate with the three of them. We must make those people pay the price. Rojo clenched her fists, and the mechanical horns on her arms rose menacingly. My detector tells me, one of the female thugs grinned, looking up into the distance, a signal is approaching. Could it be the alien? Bang! A deep blue whirlwind flashed past her. The thug fell to the ground unexpectedly, slight cracks appearing on the mechanical armor covering her skin. Normally, I don't hit women. Ben stopped in front of the countless corpses, his tone solemn. Today will be an exception. If you hadn't interfered with us, they wouldn't have died. Haha, once we get our revenge, we'll use this powerful strength to make a good profit. Rojo and another thug raised their hands, laser turrets extending from their palms and aiming straight at Ben. Bang! Bang! Lasers fired, but only struck empty ground. XLR-8 moved at high speed, landing violent blows on Rojo and the others. The three female thugs instantly became like small boats in a raging ocean, tossed back and forth by Ben, completely unable to retaliate. You three, Vilgax assessed the situation and said calmly, fly up and hold him off in the air. Whoosh. As flames erupted from Rojo's feet and she shot into the air, the other two followed, soaring high into the sky. Ben stopped, looking up at the three flying figures. He couldn't reach them. Under Vilgax's instruction, Rojo and the others raised their hands again, unleashing waves of laser fire in all directions. Countless beams overlapped, forming a tightening net of lasers around Ben. Ben darted back and forth but couldn't break through. The laser net was shrinking, steadily compressing his space to move. Rojo said ecstatically, you'll get hurt if you break out, and you'll get hurt if you don't break out. Let's see what you do. Ahaha tilde. First transformed being, dealt with. The Omnitrix aliens are nothing special in an Earthling's possession, it is meant to be wielded by me, Vilgax said coldly. Whoosh. A deep black, violent whirlwind suddenly tore across the road. Rojo and the other two subconsciously turned their heads, staring at the swirling blur coming toward them. Boom. The whirlwind suddenly leapt, and the looming figure of Mon XTR closed in rapidly on the three women. Monster. Rojo and the others went pale, immediately screaming. Hey ladies, say hi to my long and big tail he tilde. Smack. Zack swung his tail, sending Rojo flying with a single strike, while his fist slammed into the other two robbers, knocking them away as well. The three crashed heavily into the ground far away, smoke billowing up from the impact. Zack landed gracefully beside Ben. Zack, I have to rely on you to save the day again, Ben said with a wry smile. Zack reached out and pulled Ben up, his expression calm. What do you mean, save the day? You were playing the hero just now, now it's my turn. He stepped forward, passing Ben, and directly faced the three female thugs. Why is there another alien, and he looks so terrifying? What are you afraid of? We'll just use the same tactic. Right, he just looks fierce, that's all. Rojo and the others suppressed their fear and flew into the sky again. They all raised their hands, aiming at Zack. As long as you fly into the air, he won't be able to do anything to you. The voice inside Rojo muttered. The current situation was 4 against 2. The advantage is mine. Rojo and the others' palm cannons began to emit laser waves. For some reason, cold sweat beaded on their foreheads. Zack's calm, unflinching reaction gave them immense pressure. The moment the three released their laser waves, Zack suddenly stepped forward, wind surging beneath his feet, and in an instant, he was right beneath Rojo and the other two. The three subconsciously flew up a bit, fearing Zack would jump again. Zack, however, stopped and began moving wildly in all directions. What is he doing, spinning? Wait, what's that? Rojo was initially startled, not quite understanding Zack's actions. Immediately after, the three female thugs stood dumbfounded, their eyes trembling as they looked down. With the enhancement of Zack's terrifying leg strength, as he spun, he formed a massive deep silver dragon. The dragon erupted like magma, soaring straight into the clouds. Let's go up. Yeah, he wouldn't be able to reach us. Rojo and the others frantically flew upwards, their hearts pounding, trembling with fear. But the dragon was faster, arriving beside the three like a giant beast and engulfing them in one gulp. Inside the dragon, Zack's figure was everywhere, his voice echoing from all directions. You know nothing of the Monkstar's power. Not far away, Ben looked at the small tornado he had spun. He then turned his head to look at the silver storm Zack had created. These weren't even on the same scale. Zack's alien was so powerful, he was practically a god of war. Bang! 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 Rojo and the other two were trapped inside the dragon, their bodies being struck repeatedly. Zack's claws were sharper, and his strength was greater, every move he made crushed the trio's mechanical parts with ease. A moment later, when Rojo and the other two crashed to the ground and the wind gradually subsided, their bodies were battered and bruised, their mechanical parts completely shattered. Done. Zack landed lightly, his breathing steady and still full of energy. He seemed not to have just fought a battle, but merely completed a simple warm-up. Cough. Cough. Rojo looked at Zack with a despairing expression, coughing violently. The other two female robbers tilted their heads lifelessly, they had already died during the fight. Mechadroids, goodbye. Zack raised his claw, aiming at the mechanical device on Rojo's body that stored energy. Wait. I can tell you who's after you. No, don't. Rojo's expression changed, and she quickly pleaded. But the parts on her body suddenly glowed red, they were beginning to self-destruct. With her final scream, a violent explosion engulfed all three of their bodies, reducing them to ashes. Zack stood in the distance, watching it all coldly. Ding! The host has altered the course of events, not only changing the plot but also defeating 3 modified female robbers. Progress +1. Template progress is now 19/100ths. Chimera unlocked. Chimera. Inside the spaceship, Vilgax raised his fully healed arm and ripped the tubes from his body. The Earthling who obtained Azimuth's secret weapon, you are now like a annoying little insect. Enjoy your borrowed power while you can, your season is ending. Although it was 11 in the morning, the sky above the town had eerily darkened. A cold wind blew, sweeping up posters, each one showing a pale-skinned, terrifying clown. Please. Ben sat in his seat, staring boredly out the window. Do we really have to go see a circus performance today? Only little kids go to that. Gwen retorted, why not? The circus is super fun. That's because you don't need makeup to look like a clown, Ben muttered under his breath. Ben, you're not afraid of clowns, are you? Grandpa Max stifled a laugh and asked. Ben froze, then suddenly went quiet, as if deep in thought. What's going to happen today? Zack frowned, trying to remember. After the initial 3 episodes, my memory is. Sigh. The kid me would have watched Ben 10 with notes open if I knew I'd get isekai'd in it. Fu tilde calm down. I still remember the terms, the big and important plots and all the lore behind Omnitrix, Vilgax, other important aliens, and plumbers. Even if I don't remember the plot of today, well, forget it, I'd just have to improvise. Besides, he'd already changed a lot of the story anyway. As the rust bucket stopped at the circus entrance, the four got out and followed the crowd inside. The circus was exceptionally lively, packed with people. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the incredibly strong Thumbskull. On the stage, a short man slowly walked up to the microphone. At his clear announcement, a muscular man with a buzz cut and a black shirt walked in. He stepped to the center of the stage, bent the steel bar in his hand, and tossed it aside. And now, let's welcome the fiery beauty, Frightwig. As the short man introduced again, a naturally beautiful, curvaceous young woman walked in. Her makeup was strange, dark and dramatic, but it couldn't hide her striking face. She had a head of fiery red, tentacle-like hair, giving her a dangerous yet captivating aura. The audience stared at her without blinking as she bent a steel bar with the maces at the ends of her prehensile hair. Finally, an ugly man wearing a mask walked in. He spat out a corrosive liquid, completely melting the steel bar, and the crowd immediately erupted in cheers. These three. Zack silently noted their abilities, adding them to his mental watch list. Ben counted on his fingers. Hey tilde, their powers are no match for ours. We can easily defeat them. Ben, stop joking around, it's time for us to see the clowns. Grandpa Max smiled, leading the three toward a huge clown tent. Yeah, Ben, don't be afraid, Gwen started. Looking at the poster outside the clown tent, Ben took a deep breath and nodded. Let's go. Who's afraid of who? Ben, aren't you afraid of clowns? Why are you so decisive this time? Zack looked at Ben in surprise. Ben had always been terrified of clowns since he was little. Yeah. Gwen and Grandpa Max were also puzzled. Ever since the first day of this summer vacation, Ben said, giving Zack a faint, resentful glance, the thing I fear most is no longer clowns. Mon XTR, Terror I, Carnitrix. Which of these aliens isn't scarier than a clown? Yup, I was afraid of ghosts but, HMPH. Ever since Zack could transform, I'm no longer afraid of those pesky movies, Gwen nodded in agreement. Zack had helped them build up their courage. Don't tease me. Zack's face darkened, and he mumbled, aren't my aliens quite cute? The four followed the crowd, walking directly into the clown tent without any fear. They had already seen real aliens, why be afraid of a mere clown? Thumbskull, Frightwig, and the others looked at the crowd, their expressions gradually turning cold. Hey, we can start acting now. The short man sneered, his tone icy. The dimly lit clown tent was packed with people, all chattering and looking expectantly at the dazzling stage. Hey, everyone, I'm the clown Zombozo. A plump clown walked out. He wore a magician's top hat, and his pale face was fixed in a wide smile. As he slowly waved, the crowd erupted in enthusiastic cheers. This guy doesn't look like a clown, more like one of those fake sludge puppy people from Grandaunt Vera's town, Ben muttered quietly to Zack. Ha ha. Zack thought of Sludge Puppy's appearance and chuckled. The clown didn't make me laugh, but your words did. That's why Ben is like that clown, Gwen immediately shot back, looking smug. Except for Ben, who couldn't bring himself to laugh, Zack and the others were amused. As Zombozo began to perform, the crowd erupted in laughter, some even laughing so hard they couldn't stand up straight. It's well known that laughter is contagious. Soon, everyone was laughing heartily. Laugh, laugh. Zombozo kept the smile on his face as he continued his comical performance. Ha, ha ha. The people who had been laughing the hardest gradually began to lose their strength, yet strangely, they seemed unable to control their bodies and kept laughing loudly. Everyone, without exception, was laughing. Ha ha ha. What's going on? Ha ha. Zack laughed uncontrollably, as if he had been infected. He looked around, and aside from Ben, who wore his usual sour expression, Gwen and Grandpa Max were also laughing uncontrollably. Something was wrong. Ha ha. Can't laugh anymore. The moment this thought flashed through Zack's mind, he gritted his teeth and forced himself to suppress the smile. Although the corners of his mouth still twitched upward uncontrollably, he was pulling them back little by little. Just like a tug of war. The laughter around him tried to infect him, but he remained unmoved, slowly turning the tide. Ha! Recovered. Zack's expression returned to calm, and he took a deep breath, still shaken. Fortunately, my mind has been strengthened. Otherwise, I would have been controlled too. Him being controlled was a small matter, but if the Carnitrix went out of control, that would be a huge problem. Ben. Zack turned to Ben and instructed, help me distract that clown. I'll be right back. With that, he bent down and slipped out of his seat. Ha ha. This is going well. When the machine is brought out later, I can absorb their laughter, Zombozo was just thinking this when his gaze fell on an empty seat. Which rat slipped away? He immediately began scanning for the departing Zack. Hey, Mr. Clown. Ben shot up from his seat, waving his hand like he was in class. What's wrong, little friend? Zombozo suppressed his killing intent, staring intently at Ben. How is there still a kid who hasn't fallen for it? Ben said seriously, do you know the clown associated with McDonald's? Why do you think so, kid? Looking at your trashy show, I don't think you have enough money to eat this much and get so fat. So, is the McDonald's clown your overachiever relative? Did he give you food for free? Is that how you got so fat? Ben blurted with a childish expression. The crowd laughed even louder. How dare you call me fat? You're asking for death. Oh, so you're not denying the show's trash. You. Zombozo could no longer suppress his killing intent and strode off the stage toward Ben. After 2 steps, he stopped. A terrifying werewolf-like alien leapt onto the stage. Grr, the creature's voice was a gravelly growl that rattled the tent. Ladies and gentlemen, your main event starts now. His jagged grin widened, human versus beast. The spotlight of the stage fell on the figure of the werewolf-like beast. His dark blue fur shimmered under the lights, the muscles beneath solid and powerful. When he opened his mouth, countless dagger-like teeth gleamed with a chilling light. The unique traits of the Carnitrix alien made his fangs even more terrifying than a normal wolf's. Let's call him, Ben's eyes darted before he concluded, Zack Wolf. Where did this mutt come from, daring to cause trouble in my territory? Zombozo gnashed his teeth, tore off his magician's top hat, and pulled out a 200-kilogram iron hammer. He swung the massive weapon, smashing it down toward Zack's body. Zack didn't dodge. Instead, he swung his claws, fiercely striking the hammer. Clang! The sound of metal clashing echoed across the stage. His claws and the hammer were evenly matched. What kind of claws are these? Cold sweat appeared on Zombozo's face as he stared at them in disbelief. Crack! The iron hammer suddenly fractured. Those wolf claws had actually torn through the iron hammer and embedded themselves inside it. Are you Wolverine? Zombozo exclaimed in shock, quickly yanking the hammer back. First, I'll cripple your hammer. Zack grinned, then suddenly opened his massive jaws. His ruthless iron teeth clamped down on the hammer. Crunch, crunch. The hammerhead was bitten to pieces, shattered like scorched rice. Zombozo looked down at the splintered wooden handle in his hands and froze in disbelief. Is this thing even a carbon-based life form? His bite force is so strong, he must eat steel for breakfast. Now it's your turn. Zack spat out the scrap metal and lunged forward, his claws striking directly at Zombozo. Zombozo threw the broken stick to block the strike, then quickly pulled a pair of spiked knuckle dusters from his pocket. He grinned sinisterly, clenching his fists. No matter how strong a beast is, it can't withstand my grappling techniques. He swung his fists, aiming straight at Zack's vital points. Bang! The next moment, Zombozo was launched backward with a look of astonishment, easily tossed aside by Zack's combat skills. What's going on? Zombozo crashed to the ground, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. This human wolf can fight. Grr. Fighting, huh? I'm really good at it. Zack advanced slowly with a sinister grin, retracting his claws and unleashing a furious barrage of punches onto Zombozo. Zombozo struggled to defend himself. For the first time, he felt what it meant to be utterly outmatched. He was on the verge of being knocked unconscious. Ha 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 ha. So funny, the clown's getting beaten up. The audience stared at the swollen, pig-headed Zombozo, laughing so hard they could barely stand upright. The laughter grew louder and louder. Zack's movements faltered slightly, his brows furrowing, This laughter is really messing with me. His mind was once again being polluted by the sound of laughter. Even though I'm benefiting from the crowd's laughter, Zombozo muttered. Ha 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 ha. Eat that fatty. Ha ha. Go wolf go. Make a hole in that fat clown balloon. Zombozo's face twisted with resentment as he glared at the mocking audience. I'm still absolutely furious. Forget it. I'll deal with this wolf pup first. He pulled out a large saber and slowly advanced toward Zack. Zack raised his head with a feral grin, exposing his throat. Ha ha, offering me your neck to cut. So obedient. Zombozo laughed loudly, but his grin suddenly froze. The next instant, he stumbled back in shock. Before him, a massive crack split across Zack's throat, exposing bone, torn flesh, and even a glimpse of his lungs. The sight was pure horror. Roar. Zack's lungs contracted, and a terrifying soundwave burst from his throat, spreading in every direction. All the laughter in the circus was forcibly disrupted and suppressed by the wave of sound. What kind of monster is this? Zombozo's face twisted, his voice trembling. He's not Zack Wolf anymore. Ben suddenly sobered up. Staring at Zack on the stage, he declared, let's call him Wraithwolf instead. Under the force of his roar, more and more people snapped out of their trance, no longer trapped by the infectious laughter. When they finally saw Zack in his monstrous form, they screamed and bolted for the exits. As the crowd scattered, Zombozo staggered to his feet, anger overpowering his fear. I'm going to kill you. Zack lowered his head slightly, his throat glowing. The energy of his earlier roar condensed, forming into a focused beam. Bang! A sonic laser blast unleashed from his jaws. Wraithwolf's sonic cannon tore through the stage, thundering forward with explosive force. Boom! The sonic laser blast struck Zombozo, blowing him back across the stage. The beam even tore through the floorboards, sending him crashing into a bottomless pit below. Phew tilde. Zack touched his smoking throat, letting out a sigh of relief. That clown's been dealt with, for now. Ben asked in surprise, Zack, Wraithwolf, why didn't you press the advantage? There are still 3 other freaks outside. They're with that clown, and they could be a danger to people. To make sure the crowd stayed safe, Zack immediately rushed out of the clown house with Grandpa Max and Gwen following behind. Of course, he was also worried the circus freak trio might run away. If those 3 escaped, how would he increase his template progress? Outside the clown house, the circus grounds were a wreck. Tents and rides had been trampled and torn apart by the fleeing crowd. Zack stepped out, scanning the distance. Ah, my money's gone. All my jewelry was stolen. Boo hoo hoo. Don't let us catch those thieves or I might get a sentence for murder. Although most of the people had already run far away, their angry curses still echoed faintly through the air. It seemed the circus freak trio had already gotten what they wanted and left. Did they all run away? Never mind, at least no one was seriously hurt. Zack shrugged helplessly, trying to comfort himself. Suddenly, his nose twitched, and the corner of his mouth curved into a smile. He immediately sprinted forward, leaping onto the outdoor stage. Come out. From behind the curtain, a short man walked out guiltily. I've been hiding here the whole time. I don't know anything. Oh, lost your memory, have you? Then let me help you with my special memory recovery technique. Zack grinned, his chest symbol shifting. No, I'll tell you everything. The short man panicked, his voice trembling. Frightwig and the others slipped out through the clown house's back door to meet up with Zombozo. No wonder I didn't run into them. They went to regroup with their boss. Zack frowned, lost in thought. Meanwhile, the short man began tiptoeing backward, preparing to sneak away. You stay put and wait for the police obediently. Grandpa Max walked over sternly, skillfully tying the short man's hands behind his back on the stage. Ben looked at the clown house in the darkness and took a deep breath. Zack, the enemies are all holed up in their base. What now? Let's rest up, and then we'll take the initiative. Zack sat cross-legged, speaking calmly. Rest up. Won't that give the enemy more time to prepare? Ben was still worried. Once we're in good shape and go in, no matter how much they prepare, it won't matter. Zack wiggled his finger, his dark blue eyes glinting with dominance. His strength allowed him to say such things. That seemingly terrifying clown house, in his eyes, was nothing more than a Mickey Mouse clubhouse. At the entrance of the clown house, Zack rubbed his temples, his spirits bright. After a bit of fresh air, I'm completely awake. Ben stayed on guard, cautiously saying, Zack, we've waited half an hour already. We need to be careful when we go down later. Honestly, it was so dark, he was still a little scared. With me here, what are you afraid of? Zack reassured him gently, then tapped the Carnitrix screen, selecting his favorite alien. As a red light flashed and faded, a terrifying alien appeared. Ben's vision went dark, and he almost couldn't stand steadily. Zack, with you here, I'm even more scared. Ah. Then I'll go in first. A chilling voice rang out, and Zack's figure phased into the clown house. Carnitrix is even more terrifying than before, Ben said, trembling as he stared at Zack's back. Beneath the clown house was an underground base. Zombozo stood in front of a giant machine, clenching his fist fiercely. Our plan, prepared for so long, was ruined by a werewolf. He cursed, bandaging the burn across his chest. Boss, but we still managed to grab a lot of money. Frightwig spread out her living hair, revealing various gold and silver treasures. Thumbskull said ferociously, werewolf, huh? The four of us together can definitely kill him. You're right, we'll see if he dares to come. Zombozo caressed the clown machine lovingly. Just a little more, and the clown machine could have absorbed everyone's souls. If it had succeeded, the entire town would have been at his mercy. As he touched it, the mechanical casing suddenly felt rough. And very cold. Hey! An upside-down skull face emerged from the clown machine, its grin stretching to its ears. Why are you touching my face? Harassing me? Ah. Ghost. Zombozo threw up his hands, his hair bristling, collapsing onto the ground. His legs trembled, and he almost couldn't hold back his urine. Gee ghost. B boss, how does this look like a wolf? Frightwig's face turned pale, acid breath sprayed out corrosive liquid, and Thumbskull began to doubt his boss's intelligence. PFF'd. Zack's ethereal body phased out of the clown machine, slowly materializing. It was a giant, over 2.5 meters tall. Its claws were like scimitars, its body as strong as a beast. A massive hole opened in its chest, and thick crimson tentacles, each as wide as a bucket, emerged from it. It wasn't a werewolf at all, nor a ghost, or a phantom, but more like a monstrous ghost god. Bang, bang, bang. Zombozo's face went pale, and he scrambled back to Thumbskull and the other two. All four of us, let's go. Thumbskull and the others didn't react. They were frozen, staring blankly at Zack. Had the god of death come for their lives? Zack bared his teeth in a ferocious smile. Wow, the 3 enhancements my main body got all carry over to Carnitrix. That's awesome. Bang, bang, bang. He spread his body, and immediately 2 or 3 blood-red tentacles emerged. The blood-red tentacles loomed over Zombozo and his henchmen, striking down at them. Bang. One tentacle landed on Thumbskull. Thumbskull's eyes instantly bulged, his body curling up as he desperately tried to use his back to bear the weight. A mountain, it's like a mountain pressing down. Rumble. He suddenly collapsed to his knees, then was pressed firmly to the ground by the tentacle. Yes, it was like the 5-finger mountain pressing him down. Bang. Another tentacle lashed out. Frightwig tried to entangle it with all her living hair, but she was still flung high into the air, unable to resist. In the face of absolute power, numbers were nothing but a joke. Finally, acid breath. He spat his corrosive liquid at the tentacle, but it simply phased to avoid the attack, then materialized and struck him directly. The circus freak trio was instantly defeated in one round. Zombozo lost all will to fight, frantically dodging the strikes of the blood-red tentacles. Clown, don't run. I'm a kind person, I don't like scaring people like this. If you just let me knock you out, you'll be fine. Kekaki tilde. Zack, helplessly, extended his blood-red tentacles, lashing furiously around Zombozo. Zombozo darted nimbly, constantly fleeing for his life. Don't run. Just one hit, and you can sleep painlessly. I'll help you. With a cheerful shout, the figure of Diamond Head came crashing down. He looked at Zombozo with determination and charged. Golden Arch's fat clown, don't run. Zombozo immediately skidded to a halt, unable to dodge in time, and was tackled to the ground by Ben. Wait. Zack, caught off guard, couldn't stop the blood-red tentacles he had already swung. Bang bang bang. The tentacles slammed into Zombozo, his eyes rolled back, and he fainted instantly. Ben also looked distraught, having been flung hard by that blood-red tentacle, hit so brutally that his very soul felt like it was about to fly out of his body. So this is how you treat allies. It hurt so much. He, Diamond Head, was actually injured by Zack's attack. Zack silently retracted his tentacles, glancing at the 4 enemies neatly laid out on the ground, and at Frightwig still hanging in the air. This time, he had taken down quite a few opponents. He looked up, his eyes shifting to Frightwig. She immediately shut her beautiful eyes tight, held her breath, and activated the ultimate art of playing dead. I'm unconscious, you can't see me. Ding. The host has defeated the clown Zombozo and the circus freak trio, and even conveniently disciplined Ben. Progress +1. Template progress, 2100ths. Critical node reached. Killer mode has advanced to killer auto activation. Zack set Frightwig down, a bit bewildered. Before, reaching a critical node always unlocked new functions. This time was different, an old function had advanced. What is killer auto activation? Zack suppressed the doubt in his heart, shaping his tentacles into a large net and scooping up all 5 of them. He flew upward, easily carrying the 5 captives out of the clown house. A moment later, Zombozo, the short man, Frightwig, all 5 were tied together, looking utterly dejected. This clown didn't do anything. They were the ones who robbed the money. It's unfair. Zombozo, with his swollen pig-like face, actually cried out an injustice. Boss is selling us out. Frightwig and the others looked at Zombozo in disbelief. Hey, clown. Zack put Ben down, then glared fiercely at Zombozo. I warn you, don't sell out your teammates, otherwise, I'll show up in your dreams to find you tilde. Don't do that. Zombozo looked terrified. Frightwig nodded vigorously at Zack, and Thumbskull gave a thumbs up. The most supportive episode of Carnitrix Ghost Freak. The local plumbers came to arrest Zombozo's gang. Zombozo transformed into a culprit straight out of Conan, confessing his crimes on the spot while weeping bitterly. Zack, ethereal and hidden somewhere, quietly spoke. System, open the personal panel. Personal panel. Host. Zack. Age. 11. Template. Carnitrix. Transformation duration. 20 minutes. Cooldown duration. 10 to 0 minutes. Killer auto activation. Unlocked. Killer consciousness. Unlocked. Progress. 2100ths. Skills. Multilingualism. Proficiency in 5 major languages. Advanced driving. Expertise in operating vehicles across land, air, and sea. Close combat techniques. Training in hand-to-hand or close-quarters fighting. Precision firearms training. Instruction in the accurate and precise use of firearms. Items. None. Unlocked aliens. The original 10. Snare O, Mummy. Feedback to Backlash. Frankenstrike. Wraithwolf. Gorebolt. Terror Eye. Wildvine. Ditto. Gluttony. Grave Glacier. Upgrade. Megafoot to Overkilowatt. Way Big. Ripjaws. Carnifreak. Chimera. Personal Physique. Entry-level Plumber Strength. Mental Energy. Significantly above average for a human. Killer mode had disappeared, replaced by killer auto activation. The advanced form of killer mode. Killer auto activation. Regardless of whether the host transforms or not, the Carnitrix will scan enemies for the host and recommend suitable aliens to break the situation. The killer mode, which previously required manual operation, had now been transformed into automatic recommendations by the Carnitrix. All Zack had to do was decide whether or not to transform into the best option given by the Carnitrix. This way, it doesn't matter if I remember the plot or not. No matter what enemy I encounter, the Carnitrix will provide the best option. Zack showed a smile. Bilgax, are you scared? At night, inside an ancient museum. The Akamida's Spell Grimoire. Its contents record all witchcraft and spells since the 15th century. An elderly woman, past her 60s and wearing reading glasses, was introducing an ancient book in the display case. Among the tourists nearby, Gwen confidently stepped forward, speaking in unison about the grimoire's origin, showcasing her knowledge. Little girl, why don't you introduce it? The old woman adjusted her reading glasses and said to Gwen. Ha, it's not like she can't. Ben scoffed from the side. After all, she's also a little old lady. You annoying doofus. Gwen grumbled unhappily, then looked at Zack. At this moment, Zack stood in front of the display case, staring intently at the alchemy dispel grimoire. According to the nature of this world, this grimoire could probably really help someone become a mage. If he remembered correctly, Gwen had the related talent, right? But if I take the grimoire, Grandpa will definitely scold me if he finds out. And stealing isn't honorable either. Zack sighed helplessly, feeling conflicted. Just as Zack was thinking about how to achieve both. Whoosh! A blood-red mist suddenly surged into the hall, accompanied by a strong gust of wind. Including Zack and his group, about 20 people were swept up by the strong wind and pressed against the ceiling. What's going on? Ah! The mist turned into a person. Amidst the tourists, screams and panic, the blood-red mist condensed into a figure. It was an old man dressed in blood-red robes, holding a staff. His skin was pale, and he had skull-like makeup on his face. This image, an unmistakable villain. Click. The Carnitrix automatically popped up its screen, displaying the figure of Carnitrix variant of feedback, backlash. Ding. Your thoughtful Carnitrix presents you with the best alien to defeat this entity. Wow, so thoughtful. Can you be this thoughtful? Ben looked at the scene, then glanced at the broken watch on his wrist, looking utterly dejected. HMPH, this broken watch really deserves a slap. The alchemy dispel grimoire is mine. Hex raised his staff, and the strange stone embedded in it flickered for a moment. Bang! Energy erupted from the staff, blasting open the display case. Hex reached out, snatched the alchemy dispel grimoire, and then swung his staff. Whoosh! The crowd began to fall, everyone screaming uncontrollably. In midair, a red and a green light suddenly flashed. XLR8's figure landed first, quickly setting up cushioning moves to catch people one by one. Meanwhile, Backlash leapt out, his terrifying face carrying a hint of intimidation as he pounced toward Hex. What kind of monster are you? Hex's eyes widened, and he quickly chanted a spell, hastily waving his staff. Boom! As his staff released a flash of fire, terrifying flames instantly engulfed Zack's figure. It's best to leave first. Hex then glanced at Ben, raised his staff directly, and transformed into a blood-colored mist. That mist carried the grimoire, sweeping outward and surging toward the other streets. The mist moved extremely fast, far faster than ordinary vehicles. The fierce fire quickly extinguished, and Zack's figure landed on the ground unharmed, with currents crackling around him. He looked at Hex's receding figure speechlessly and muttered, "No way, why run off at the start? What a pathetic villain. Go after him quickly. If he gets too far, the alchemy dispel grimoire won't be retrieved." The old woman no longer cared about fear, pleading with the terrifying-looking Backlash and XLR8. Got it, don't worry. Ben rescued the last girl, nodding vigorously. Can't retrieve it. Zack muttered, his expression turning thoughtful. I've got a perfect idea. A cloud of blood mist raged across the street, drifting toward the suburbs, shaking off police cars one by one. Until the blood mist arrived at an uninhabited area. The mist condensed into a human figure, Hex. This operation was thrilling but not truly dangerous. Hex tightly clutched the alchemy dispel grimoire, wiping cold sweat from his forehead. But, what were those two monsters that suddenly appeared? They were strange creatures I've never seen before. That tall, thin one wasn't too troublesome. But the terrifying-looking monster. It gave him an inexplicable sense of oppression. That was why he chose to escape quickly and run on the spot. Fortunately, he had managed to get away in time, leaving those two monsters chasing shadows. Hex opened the alchemy dispel grimoire, flipping through it excitedly. Okay. Now I can master more spells and unleash greater magic. The world shall bow down to me. Boom. A blue whirlwind swept in, suddenly rushing past Hex. The grimoire in his hand instantly vanished. He looked forward in exasperation. Hey. Ben shook the alchemy dispel grimoire in his hand. This isn't yours. I'm confiscating it for now. You actually caught up to me. Hex furiously gripped his staff, pointing it at Ben. Good. Only one came. Wrong. A chilling voice sounded from behind Hex. He suddenly turned around, and the figure that made him instinctively fearful appeared before his eyes. Hello there, Tilda. Zack strode forward, the electricity on his feet completely depleted. We could have caught up to you much earlier, but fighting in the city would have endangered others. This distance. Losing the grimoire was only natural. I'll get rid of you first. Hex glared at Zack in a rage, suddenly raising his staff. As his body rose into the air, the staff emitted a deep purple magical blast, surging straight toward Zack once again. Zack's figure remained motionless, allowing the magic to strike directly at him. Boom. As the magic struck him, Zack unhesitatingly thrust his 10 fingers into the blast. Whirl crackle tilde tilde. Large amounts of magic instantly scattered, then surged into his body, transforming into waves of electricity. What? Hex's eyes bulged as he stared at Zack in disbelief. You can actually absorb magic. The electricity I used up during the chase is now fully recovered. You want it back. A faint smile curled at Zack's lips, and electricity exploded from his feet in powerful bursts. Boom. He pushed off the ground, and with the boost of electricity, he shot toward Hex as if taking flight. If you can absorb magic, then I'll use fire. Hex chanted an incantation through clenched teeth, his expression dark with resentment. Boom. Another charm on his staff flickered, and then the staff unleashed a terrifying wave of flame. The flames surged like a giant beast, instantly engulfing Zack's flying figure. Bang. The next moment, the flames abruptly dissipated, as if extinguished out of thin air. And Zack, now cloaked in even more dazzling electricity, leapt directly in front of Hex. Rumble. Crackle. Rumble. His fist, wreathed in crackling currents, smashed into the blood-red mist that Hex had transformed into. The electricity exploded, scattering the mist and forcing a painful growl from Hex. His pale face twisted with shock. What kind of monster is this? He can absorb magic power, and even fire. Boom. Under the impact of the electric punch, the mist scattered, revealing Hex's figure. He hastily waved his staff, unleashing a powerful gust of wind that sent Zack flying. Zack landed in a backflip, his expression calm. Wow. So you still have a physical body even in mist form. That makes you easier to deal with. He had originally thought Hex's mist form was like a Logia-type devil fruit ability. You are just a demonic summon of someone, while I am the master of mystic arts. Don't get cocky. Hex cursed, waving his staff repeatedly, sending out blasts of wind that struck toward Zack like invisible demonic palms. Zack quickly raised his arms and braced his stance, resisting the fierce gusts. Ben accelerated and rushed in behind Zack, supporting him from the back. The two of them stood firm, braving the wind together. Ha ha ha. If I can keep them pinned down with this storm, I'll find an opening to get the grimoire back. Hex muttered excitedly, convinced he'd found the key to breaking the stalemate. He seemed to be suppressing Zack and his companion with a relentless kiting strategy. A tense deadlock formed between the three. Ben, let go of me. Zack suddenly shouted, his voice booming against the roar of the wind. You have a plan. Ben got excited and immediately retreated with the grimoire. Whoosh tilde. The strong wind swept Zack up, carrying his body into the air. Huh. Ben's eyes widened as he watched. I thought Zack was about to go God mode, but he just got blown away. Bahaha, I'm going to win. Hex laughed, excitedly waving his staff, using the wind to hurl Zack farther and farther. Zack's figure flew back, but his eyes stayed sharp. He raised one finger, steady like a gun barrel, aiming directly at Hex high above. It was time to swat that fly down. Swoosh. As Zack flicked his finger, an armor-piercing bullet of electricity shot forward, blasting straight toward Hex in the sky. What? Hex's eyes widened in shock, his body twitching instinctively as he tried to dodge. The electric bullet shot into the mist and exploded directly on Hex's main body. Boom. His form shuddered and fell awkwardly to the ground. Meanwhile, Zack performed a graceful backflip, landing lightly on his feet once again. He raised his hand and blew away the smoke rising from his finger. Now, game over. Boom boom boom. The instant Hex hit the ground, Zack's feet sparked with electricity, and he charged forward at blinding speed. Seeing this, Ben didn't even think about using XLR8 to steal the victory, he was honestly too afraid of being caught in the crossfire. Don't come any closer. Hex frantically swung his staff, unleashing wave after wave of magical blasts. But each burst of energy fizzled out the moment it struck Zack, vanishing in an instant. Zack's figure only grew brighter with electricity as he rushed forward even faster. Not only did Hex's magic fail to stop him, it only fueled Zack's power further. Hey tilde just one hit, and you'll be knocked out. Zack closed in on Hex, stopped his charge, and swung a heavy fist straight at him. Bang! Hex quickly raised his enchanted staff, blocking the strike just in time. His cloak spread outward, twisting into blood-red tendrils that tightly wrapped around Zack's punching arm. Only like this, he barely managed to hold back Zack's attack. Bye-bye. Zack smiled faintly as he spoke, and in the same instant, his tail crackled with electricity before whipping forward like an iron rod, slamming into Hex's body. Why is his tail a weapon too, URG? Hex's eyes rolled back, and he collapsed to the ground with a heavy thud. The sorcerer was down. All right, mission accomplished. We can leave once the police arrive. Ben clapped his hands together, then tilted his head curiously. Hey, Zack, why are you stripping his clothes? Zack was calmly removing Hex's robes and taking the staff. It's too dangerous to leave these things with him, Zack said matter-of-factly. It's more reasonable for us to keep them. That makes some sense. Hey, shouldn't we give them to the police? Ben tilted his head, a bit confused. Ben, Zack looked at him seriously and said firmly, with great power comes great responsibility. We, as heroes, have to work even harder, so we'll keep these things. Saying that, he also picked up the Akimita spell grimoire. When the police cars arrived at the scene, Hex hugged his chest, curled up, shivering from the cold. Can someone give me some clothes? I only have my underwear left. How could anyone treat a lonely old man like this? Inside the rust bucket, Zack put down the staff, the cloak, and even the grimoire. Grandpa, that's how it is. Let us keep these things. Keep them then. Grandpa Max wasn't too strict about it. If we don't, people like Hex will just come to rob the museum again. On that point, he was right. Zack, I'm super interested in the grimoire, can you? Gwen leaned over, her eyes burning as she stared at the ancient book. Oh, alright, they're all yours. Zack's face lit up, and he readily handed all the items to Gwen. He was hoping Gwen could master magic early. This way, he might be able to increase his template progress. Thank you, Zack. Gwen excitedly raised her hands and gave Zack a big hug. I don't know how to thank you. Cough, it's nothing. Zack was slightly out of breath from the hug, reassuring her, as long as you like it. Zack's muscles are really solid. Gwen's face turned slightly red as she lowered her arms, silently praising his build again. She had taken the opportunity to grope him a little. Who said girls aren't attracted to strong bodies? After that, Gwen buried herself in the grimoire, studying obscure spells and continuously practicing with the staff, practically forgetting to eat and sleep. But Zack didn't gain any template progress from this. After a peaceful night, everyone went to bed. It wasn't until the middle of the night. A cold wind swept through, brushing past Zack's body. His nose twitched slightly, and he slowly opened his eyes to see faint red lights flickering inside the rust bucket. What's going on? Zack slowly turned his head, looking toward the living area of the old camper. Gwen was wearing the cloak. Its tentacle-like ends held the grimoire and the staff tightly, and her body was glowing with a faint red light. Sensing something, Gwen turned to look at Zack. She gave him an apologetic yet somewhat sweet smile. Sorry, Zack, did I disturb your sleep? I studied all night, and I think I've figured out how to use these things now. And I discovered that I'm actually quite talented in this area. Zack took a deep breath. What time is it, and you're still studying? Gwen, you're truly a workaholic. No wonder Gwen was better at using the Omnitrix than Ben in some episodes. Her learning ability was excellent. Ding. The host defeated Hex, took all of Hex's treasures, and helped Gwen become a magician in advance. Progress +1. Template progress is now 21/100ths. Acquired. Water hazard and armadillo. Zack heard a crisp notification in his mind. Thanks to Gwen, he had gained more progress. He immediately grinned from ear to ear, got out of bed, and helped Gwen tidy up the items. Afterward, the two of them leaned against the upper bunk and fell asleep peacefully. At the water park, on a massive, crisscrossing waterslide as tall as a 6-story building. You don't meet the height requirement, so you can't go on the waterslide. The lifeguard looked at Ben, then at the height chart, which was just a little taller than him, and stopped him. Hey, buddy. Ben looked at the lifeguard and said, it's just a little bit off. Is it really necessary to be so strict? Nah, right. No. You can't go. The lifeguard flatly refused, then nodded to Zach and Gwen, who met the requirement. You two can play. Okay Ben. Then Gwen and I will go first. Zach said awkwardly to Ben, before Gwen, already in her swimsuit, pulled him toward the waterslide. The two sat in the rubber raft together and began to experience the thrilling ride down. Their excited, joyful screams quickly echoed throughout the waterslide. Ah, so annoying. Ben looked displeased and slowly walked to a corner. He glanced down at the Omnitrix and tapped the screen. Height not up to standard. Then I'll just change into one that is. As the Omnitrix screen popped open, the figure of 4 arms appeared. Ben, however, didn't press it. Instead, he hesitated. I promised Zach I wouldn't mess around with this watch. If I can't keep that promise, Zach will definitely look down on me. Click. The Omnitrix screen suddenly glitched, flickering with light and rapidly cycling through alien forms. Hey, what's wrong with you? Ben panicked, pressing buttons on the Omnitrix and then smacking it hard. But the Omnitrix was already malfunctioning, and with Ben's forceful hit. Whoosh! A burst of green light flashed, and Ghost Freak's figure appeared under the sunlight. Ah! I turned into Ghost Freak. Ah! Wait! My body feels like it's burning. Ben felt unbearably uncomfortable, his throat dry, as he quickly turned invisible and floated toward an empty swimming pool at the water park. He sank into the pool, weakly leaning against the wall, yet even underwater, the scattered sunlight still seared against him. It's fine, the Omnitrix only lasts 10 minutes. I can endure it. Ben encouraged himself, trying to hold on. At the water park. Click. Zach stood at the bottom of the waterslide, looking in confusion at the Carnitrix on his wrist. The Carnitrix had popped up its screen on its own, clearly displaying the figure of Carnifreak. Zach, is your watch malfunctioning? Gwen put her hands on her hips and glanced around. Or is there an enemy nearby? Enemy. Zach scanned the area. A group of kids their age were just running around, laughing and playing. Could it be that the Carnitrix itself wanted to start attacking? Zach, Gwen, why didn't Ben come down with you two? Grandpa Max walked over from nearby, calling to them as they stood in doubt. Maybe he's still coming down the stairs. Let's go check. Zach carefully twisted the Carnitrix screen back down, then he and Grandpa Max hurried to the stairwell of the waterslide. Everyone waited for a while, but when Ben still didn't appear, they all walked up the massive waterslide, only to find that Ben was nowhere to be seen. And so, Zach and Gwen searched everywhere while Grandpa Max went to find the person in charge. Everyone began looking for Ben. More than 10 minutes passed in a flash. Huff, huff. Ben, soaking in the cold water of the swimming pool, weakly muttered, Omnitrix, are you deliberately messing with me? Usually, the transformation ends in 10 minutes, but this time it's still not ending. If he had known, he would have gritted his teeth and flown out of the water park, hiding in a nearby apartment instead. As time went on, whoosh, Ben's consciousness grew hazy, and his transparent figure began to flicker in and out. In a daze, he saw an adult figure approaching. A hint of relief appeared on his face. There's hope. Oh my tilde, is this a ghost or an alien? A man with glasses cautiously came to the side of the pool, looking at the unconscious Ghost Freak. No matter what it is, the organization will definitely be interested. If I sell you to them, I'll make a huge profit. This man IMG. As he thought, he laboriously dragged Ben's body away and quietly slipped out of the swimming pool lounge. At the entrance of the water park. We've searched the entire water park, but we can't find Ben anywhere. Grandpa Max looked troubled, letting out a deep sigh. Where did he go? Zach glanced at the Carnitrix, which had returned to normal, and said, Grandpa, could Ben have transformed into some alien and been forced to leave the water park? That would explain why the Carnitrix had suddenly activated with killing intent. And why Ben, a living person, would suddenly disappear. That's possible, let's get in the rust bucket and look around nearby. Everyone returned to the rust bucket, and Grandpa Max drove without stopping. The vehicle hadn't been moving for long when it started when an alien device did what it did tilde tilde. On the desk, Zach's phone rang. He picked up the phone, looked at the unfamiliar number, and answered. Hello, ISSSS this Zach. A cold yet weak voice came through. It's me, Ben. Ben, how did you turn into Ghost Freak? And why is your voice so weak? Zach stood up in surprise and quickly asked. HMPH, don't ASSSKSSSO many questions SS right now. I'm on Eastman Street, you guys need to hurry and find me, my condition is getting worse and worse. Ben's voice grew weaker and weaker until he couldn't hold the phone anymore and collapsed directly onto the ground. The intense sunlight not only weakened him. His brain also seemed to have some mysterious power invading it. Ah, I almost let you run away while I was on the computer. No time to lose. The man with glasses, Howell Wainwright, rushed over angrily, charging toward Ben. Beep beep beep. The call ended. Whoosh. Red light flashed, and the terrifying figure of the Mon XTR appeared inside the rust bucket. Without a word, he opened the window, leapt out, and rushed toward the location Ben had mentioned. Hey, Zach, we still don't even know where Ben is. Grandpa Max looked at Zach's disappearing figure and shouted quickly. He silently sighed, then looked at the car window in front of him, startled. On the car window, there was a sticky note, and on it was precisely the address Ben had mentioned. Zach had already taken care of all the details, it was just that everyone hadn't noticed clearly. Zach walked into a room, scanning over the various documents and materials about aliens scattered everywhere. His footsteps finally stopped in front of the landline. He picked it up, his expression darkening. This is the phone that called me. I'm too late. He searched the entire room but couldn't find Ben anywhere. Now, Zach could almost confirm it. Ben's Omnitrix was malfunctioning, and he had transformed into Ghost Freak. He had to find Ben. Is there any way to track him down? Zach fell into deep thought. Meanwhile, on the way to the organization, Ben, trapped in the trunk, slowly opened his weak eyes. But deep inside them burned a rare trace of brutality. He coldly glared through the cracks toward the man with glasses driving in the front seat. Then, with effort, he slowly closed his eyes again. In Howell Wainwright's home, inside the first-floor study, Zach sat at the computer desk, gripping the mouse awkwardly with his claws as he tried to operate it. Slowly, the computer booted up, and a prompt appeared, requesting a password. This is the only computer left to check. A mere password should be manageable with upgrade. Zach's eyes shifted, and he tapped the Carnitrix symbol. With a flash of red light, Carnitrix variant, upgrade appeared and quickly spread across the computer's host, monitor, and peripherals. The computer's operating speed instantly accelerated, and the password prompt was bypassed in seconds, a hardcore boot up. Pop-up windows opened one after another as the hard drive was rapidly scanned. Zach absorbed the information at lightning speed. The clever part was that unless he deliberately chose to memorize them, these memories would fade quickly, never clogging his brain. Just a bunch of games and videos, nothing useful to me. His face showed disappointment, until his expression suddenly shifted. A hidden drive had been detected, and the system began scanning its contents. Aliens, the organization, suburbs. From the hidden drive, Zach learned that the computer's owner was named Howell Wainwright, an alien enthusiast who was secretly working with a group called the Organization. This organization's base was located in the suburbs. According to the hard drive data, it looked on the surface like some alien research club. If I remember correctly, the organization is a villainous group. Zach detached from the computer, his expression solemn. Now, I need to rescue Ben. Foosh tilde. With a flash of red light, he returned to his original form and left Howell's house. Just in time, Grandpa Max pulled up in the rust bucket, and Zach hopped on so they could head straight to the organization's base. The organization turned out to be a massive fortress. Around the stronghold, heavily armed guards in armored suits patrolled the grounds, making the place look more like a military base than a research facility. Inside the fortress, in a laboratory, Howell smiled obsequiously, rubbing his hands. That alien, I've delivered him to you. Can I have my payment now? Payment. One of the armored soldiers, wearing a golden mask, turned to him coldly. The alien you brought is so weak, you should be paying us for his medical expenses. What? Medical expenses? Howell stared at the armored soldier in shock. The Forever Knight nodded coldly. As the seller, shouldn't you guarantee the health of the live specimens you bring in? If you can't even do that, you dare to ask us for money. Before long, two soldiers dragged the grumbling Howell out of the lab and tossed him into the corridor like garbage. All right. The Forever Knight slowly turned back toward the operating table, his tone almost fanatical. Let's see what kind of value this mysterious alien truly holds. On the huge operating table lay Ben's ghost freak form, his body bound tightly with heavy iron chains. He appeared motionless, as if unconscious. Boss. One soldier approached, respectfully offering an operating knife. The Forever Knight took the blade and carefully sliced across the thin layer of Ghost Freak's pale skin. This doesn't feel like normal flesh, it's more like some sort of disguise. Whoosh. Boom. Suddenly, a grotesque tentacle whipped out, smacking the Forever Knight across the room with terrifying force. The other soldiers froze in shock, then scrambled to raise their laser rifles, aiming at the operating table. But the operating table was empty, Ghost Freak's figure had vanished. Kahahe. A bone-chilling laugh echoed above the soldiers' heads. Tentacles suddenly lashed out, wrapping tightly around their necks like nooses. The soldiers were hoisted violently into the air, their limbs thrashing helplessly. I've recovered almost completely. Ghost Freak's eerie form materialized, his purple eyes glowing with a cruel, bloody light. It's time to unleash a massacre kahahehe. You just signed your death warrant. The Forever Knight staggered to his feet, grabbing a laser rifle and aiming it at Ghost Freak. Bang! The blast went off just as reinforcements rushed into the lab, dozens of rifles snapping up and unleashing volleys of fire at Ghost Freak. The more of you there are, the more fun this becomes. Ghost Freak faded into invisibility, weaving between soldiers like a phantom. His tentacles struck without warning, dragging men into the shadows. Even worse, with every strike, he twisted their minds with illusions, turning the soldiers against one another, their weapons firing wildly as chaos erupted in the laboratory. Everyone, retreat with me. Gather all personnel, then deal with this alien. With the Forever Knight's command, the soldiers began to fall back in an orderly formation. Ghost Freak pursued them mercilessly. Retreat. Bahahaha that depends on whether you survive long enough to try. Haha, well done. From outside the corridor, House cheered excitedly as he watched Ghost Freak tearing through the ranks. The next second, he was casually swatted aside by Ghost Freak. You too, kid, you deserve to die, too. Outside the fortress, the Forever Knight, leading a handful of bloodied survivors, managed to escape the base. Their battered state quickly drew the attention of the outer guards. After hearing the report, all remaining troops prepared for a desperate defense against Ghost Freak inside. Room . But before they could regroup, the roar of an engine echoed through the night. An old RV barreled into the fortress territory, screeching to a halt at the gates. Click. Inside the rust bucket, the Carnitrix's screen suddenly popped open, displaying the silhouette of an alien. Without hesitation, Zack slammed his hand down on the dial. Just trust the Carnitrix and it'll be fine. Bang bang bang. The Forever Knight and the others all raised their laser rifles, aiming at the rust bucket as red light flared inside. Then the door swung open, and a terrifying figure stepped out. The Eternal Warrior and his men forgot to even pull the trigger. They froze, staring in absolute horror at the monster that emerged. A massive, muscular alien, with 4 colossal arms bulging with power, his sheer size tearing through what little fabric covered him. Carnitrix variant. 4 arms. The 4 arms transformation is stronger and bigger than before. Gwen's eyes widened in shock. He'll definitely be able to save Ben. I hope so. Grandpa Max took a deep breath. Sigh. Why were Azimuth's watches like this? Ben's watch malfunctioned constantly. And Zack's watch made him so terrifying. If both watches were stable, maybe things wouldn't always end up so chaotic. It's good that Zack is such a reliable child. Hey, you guys. Zack stepped forward, his massive frame rippling with muscle. I only have one question. Where is Ben? Fire. At the Forever Knight's command, every soldier frantically raised their laser rifles and unleashed a storm of blasts. Countless beams struck Zack, exploding into a cloud of smoke. The next second, he walked out of the haze completely unharmed, not even blinking. His sheer physical strength had reached a level beyond imagination. Ordinary weapons couldn't even scratch him. I just asked a simple question. Well, you guys fooled up. As Zack advanced on the soldiers, he raised all four arms and clapped his hands together with a casual motion. Rumble. The shockwave of compressed air tore forward like a hurricane, instantly flattening the squad of warriors and hurling them across the ground. The entrance of the fortress itself cracked and collapsed under the impact. Done. Zack's deep voice echoed in the silence. He flexed his fists and scanned the halls ahead. Next, I need to find Ben. Zack rubbed his hands together, preparing to step into the fortress. Ding. The host has defeated the warriors of the organization and significantly altered the plot, giving Zaskar, the Ectonorite whose DNA was stored, an early chance to appear. Progress +1. Template progress is now 22/100. Advanced plumber abilities unlocked. Had he really changed the plot again, forcing the self-aware ghost freak to appear early? But since things had already developed this way, Zack didn't waste time dwelling on it. He only had one goal now. Deliver a crushing blow and take down Ghost Freak. It was still the same belief as always, use absolute power to deal with every variable. First, a flood of memories surged into Zack's mind. He gained vast amounts of extraterrestrial knowledge, understanding their habits, characteristics, and weaknesses. He learned how to pilot single-person spacecraft, as well as the techniques required to assist in piloting larger ships. He also mastered advanced plumber engineering skills, the ability to transform vehicles into battle-ready machines, turning scraps into miracles. By this moment, the knowledge Zack possessed was almost on par with Grandpa Max's. So, after my physique enhancement, my four arms will be as strong as Vilgax. A flash of insight crossed Zack's eyes, and he thoroughly understood his own extraterrestrial form. The next moment, he looked up at the fortress, his voice cold. Zaskar, stop hiding in there. As soon as he finished speaking. Bang! A purple laser beam shot out of nowhere and struck Zack. But Zack allowed the beam to hit him, and his body remained completely unharmed. It's useless. You can't hurt me. Kid, don't get cocky. Zaskar snarled, his voice echoing with malice. As long as I keep phasing, you can't do anything to me. As long as he stalled for time, Zaskar knew he would gradually recover all his power. Then, once he completed his possession of Ben, he would finally have the strength to fight Zack head-on. Zack frowned, glancing up at the scorching sun. I remember, your weakness is sunlight. Yes, Zaskar sneered. But do you think you can actually let the sunlight in? Bang! Zack suddenly lowered his head, his muscles bulging so much that his clothes nearly tore apart. Then, raising all four of his arms, he slammed them into one side of the fortress wall like iron hammers. Rumble. In an instant, the thick wall cracked apart, crumbling like brittle plaster. With no barrier left to block it, sunlight poured into the chamber, shining directly onto Zaskar. Zaskar recoiled in pain, his body twisting violently. This kid, how can he be strong enough to tear down walls? Don't even think about escaping. Zack locked onto the dust-covered figure and strode forward, pursuing without hesitation. He unleashed the strength of all four fists, becoming like a human bulldozer, tearing down layer after layer of the fortress walls. Wherever Zaskar fled, Zack demolished the buildings in that direction, refusing to let him rest for even a second. He was practically a four-armed Hulk. This is bad. Zaskar kept flying forward, but to his despair, he realized. No matter where he went, Zack's fists would tear down the walls, sunlight pouring in, forcing him to keep moving. I'll go underground. That should work. Hardening his resolve, Zaskar phased into the ground, drilling deep below. The cool darkness wrapped around him, and for a brief moment, he sighed in relief. Much better. Boom. Rumble. Zack slammed all four fists into the ground, shattering the Earth's crust with sheer brute force, creating a massive crater like a meteorite impact. Sunlight poured straight into the hole, striking the cornered Zaskar below. Sizzle. Sizzle. The burning sound echoed violently as his body smoked under the searing rays. The scare, unable to maintain his phased form, collapsed and rolled in agony in the pit. His gaze was filled with despair as he watched Zack approach step by step. Next, I'll take you into the air, for a nice sunbath. Zack's terrifying face twisted into a chilling smile. The scare looked at him, horrified. You demon. He roared in anger, his body trembling weakly. Zack ignored the curses, reached out, grabbed Zascare's body, and hoisted him onto his shoulder. Just as he was about to leap into the air, whoosh! A deep green light suddenly bloomed across Zascare's body. No! As the light flashed and disappeared, the figure in Zack's grip shifted. When the glow faded, he was holding Ben instead. Zack immediately set him down. Zack, I finally changed back. Ben was drenched in sweat from the heat, his body weak as he shakily raised his Omnitrix. I almost died from the sun. It seems that me hitting the Omnitrix triggered its protection mechanism, forcing you to exit the transformation. Zack let out a deep sigh of relief and comforted him. It's all right now. Zack is truly too strong. Ben even felt it. Zack was more terrifying than the ghost that had possessed him. As Zack carried Ben back to the rust bucket, the group drove away just as the organization arrived. A squad of armored warriors stood dumbfounded, staring at the ruined fortress. Which group used tanks to bombard our fortress? Don't let the organization find them, or I'm afraid I will remove their DNA from this universe. Inside the rust bucket, Ben gulped down glass after glass of cola, trying to recover from the heat he had endured. Phew, iced cola feels amazing. Ben, from now on, we need to establish 3 rules. Zack said seriously. First, don't slam the Carnitrix, it'll cause it to malfunction. Second, don't transform into Ghost Freak. Third, if the Carnitrix malfunctions, stay by my side. Alright, I got it. Ben nodded, still shaken. He really didn't expect that the longer he stayed transformed as Ghost Freak, the more his body would become uncontrollable. If it hadn't been for Zack's timely intervention. Any later, and Zascare would have certainly completed the possession of Ben's body. Hey, that's strange. Grandpa Max glanced at Zack, puzzled. Zack's Ghost Freak was clearly far more terrifying than Ben's, yet no possession occurred. This, azimuth is too biased. Not only is Ben's watch less stable than Zack's, but even his DNA is unstable. Meanwhile, inside the Omnitrix, Zascare was curled up in a dark corner, occasionally hearing the muffled sounds from outside. He looked horrified, his tone filled with deep apprehension. As for escaping, I still need to plan carefully. That kid Zack is far too troublesome. Why am I not the alien inside his watch? System, open the personal panel. Personal panel. Host. Zack. Age. 11. Template. Carnitrix. Transformation duration. 20 minutes. Cooldown duration. 10 to 0 minutes. Killer auto activation. Unlocked. Killer consciousness. Unlocked. Progress. 22/100ths. Skills. Multilingualism. Proficiency in 5 major languages. Advanced driving. Expertise in operating vehicles across land, air, and sea. Close combat techniques. Training in hand-to-hand or close-quarters fighting. Precision firearms training. Instruction in the accurate and precise use of firearms. Alien encyclopedia. Spaceship piloting technology. Advanced plumber abilities. Items. None. Unlocked aliens. The original 10. Snare O, Mummy. Feedback to Backlash. Frankenstrike. Wraithwolf. Gorebolt. Terror Eye. Wildvine. Ditto. Gluttony. Grave Glacier. Upgrade. Megafut to Overkilowatt. Way Big. Ripjaws. Carnifreak. Chimera. Water Hazard. Armadillo. Personal Physique. Entry-level plumber strength. Mental energy. Significantly above average for a human. It was another morning, and Zack leaned back in his seat, looking at the data on his personal panel. He was quite satisfied with his progress. I just don't know if I can defeat Vilgax. Zack grew slightly nervous, clenching his fists. Cough, cough, cough. A series of violent coughs interrupted Zack's thoughts. Ben's eyes were unfocused, his nose rubbed raw, and he coughed and sniffled from time to time. I shouldn't have drunk so much iced cola last night. Oh, Ben. Zack looked at the sick Ben, feeling a bit helpless. You only drank 1 bottle of iced cola yesterday, right? How did you catch a cold? That. Ben lowered his head, looking a bit guilty. He secretly drank at least 2 or 3 bottles, and even buried the bottles at the bottom of the trash bag, Grandpa Max said, exasperated, as he stepped on the accelerator. Chinatown is just ahead. I'll buy you some cold medicine. The rust bucket drove into Chinatown and stopped in front of a traditional Chinese medicine shop. Not only did Grandpa Max go to buy cold medicine, but Zack also got out of the RV and weighed several bags of cold medicine for Ben. Ben was very resistant, but still, at the request of his good grandpa and good brother, he drank bottle after bottle of cold medicine. As he wiped his mouth, Ben suddenly froze and pointed his finger. Bugs. So disgusting. Bugs. Zack was stunned for a moment, then looked at a bag of cold medicine. Sure enough, locusts were wriggling inside. I have them on me too. Grandpa Max's expression changed as he reached into his shirt and pulled out a locust. No, there are swarms of them nearby, look. Gwen clutched her staff tightly and spoke in alarm. Outside the window of the rust bucket, massive swarms of locusts flew past. The locusts were so dense they almost formed a black mist, all flying in the same direction. The city, under my governance, will be built even more perfectly. The first priority is to demolish those slums. On the terrace plaza, a female politician was passionately discussing her plans. Buzz buzz buzz. Suddenly, the crowd grew restless, eyes widening in terror as swarms of insects darkened the sky overhead. The politician's expression changed, and she dropped the microphone in fright. I will not allow you to demolish my home. From among the crowd, a man with a sallow complexion, dressed like a vagrant, stepped forward. He glared viciously at the female politician and waved his hand bloodthirstily. Minions, capture her. BZZZ. 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 A massive swarm of insects converged into the shape of a gigantic hand, closing in around the female politician's body. Wait. No. Under her terrified scream, boom. A ball of flame shot across the plaza, forming a blazing firewall in front of her and stopping the locusts. Attack. Are you all right, madam? A clear voice, calm and commanding like that of a guardian angel, came from nearby. Is it a god who saved me? The female politician's heart pounded as she turned her head in disbelief toward the approaching figure. Ah! Don't come any closer. Don't come any. Thud. Her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed to the ground, fainting from shock. Ah, it seems she's not all right. Zack's mouth twitched slightly as he awkwardly stopped in front of the unconscious female politician. Whoosh! A gust of wind swept over, carrying the female politician's body and gently setting her down at a safer spot. I'll take care of saving people, you focus on dealing with the freak. Gwen stood in a bright red robe, clutching a magic staff. The cloak's enchanted tendrils shifted and wrapped over part of her face, leaving only her eyes and mouth visible. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A massive swarm of locusts surged toward Gwen, attacking ferociously. Boom. Zack erupted into flames, blazing like a god of fire, and charged straight into the swarm, blasting insects aside in waves. He shifted slightly, turning his back to Gwen as he faced the endless locust army head-on. Then, leave it to me with confidence. Gwen looked at Zack's back, a sudden warmth of security spreading through her chest. Not his horrifying alien face, but his back. Zack looks so cool. Clancy's face twisted in fury, his features contorting with rage. Where did this monster come from? Locusts, take him down. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The locust swarm condensed into a massive, terrifying spear, stabbing directly toward Zack. It's good you all came together. This way, I can wipe you out in one go. Zack brought his arms together, flames surging and burning hotter until they turned a deep crimson, like the fire of a red lotus. Boom. He released the blazing inferno, and the red lotus fire roared out, colliding head-on with the swarm. Countless locusts rained down, roasted to a crisp mid-air. But there were too many, endlessly replenishing. The swarm managed to resist and even hold its ground against Zack's flames. Do you need help? Gwen's scalp prickled as she stared at the endless tide of insects, but she still mustered the courage to shout. No need, I've got a little trick of my own. Zack's mouth curved into a confident grin. His 10 fingers spread wide, and he began twisting the red lotus fire. The fire swirled rapidly, condensing and shifting until its color deepened into a faint, dangerous purple. Rumble. The next moment, the faint purple flames erupted in the air, blooming into a massive explosion. The entire swarm of locusts was swallowed by the purple fire. Then, they disintegrated into endless ash, drifting down like dust onto the street. The sight was nothing short of terrifying. The fire guy's flames can actually explode like a bomb. Gwen stared at the sky in disbelief, her voice trembling. This destructive power. It felt almost like a small nuclear blast. I only discovered it myself yesterday. Zack gave a slight smile and whispered. The Alien Encyclopedia had not only revealed the weaknesses of aliens, but also their hidden strengths, allowing him to maximize his combat power. Thud. The vagrant collapsed to one knee, his whole body trembling. I never thought I, Clancy, would actually be defeated by a monster. Oh. Zack looked down at Clancy with mild interest, his voice calm. Do you have any other tricks left to show me? He wanted to see if he could squeeze out the villain's full value. To underestimate me so much. Clancy sensed Zack's confidence and immediately flew into a rage. He rushed to a nearby manhole, muttering under his breath. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A massive swarm of cockroaches, reeking with a foul stench, poured out of the manhole. Shockingly, every last one of them crawled onto Clancy's body. Gradually, grr. A monstrous insect giant, dozens of meters tall and entirely composed of cockroaches, rose up in the middle of the street. The sight alone was enough to make anyone's scalp tingle. Click. The Carnitrix symbol on Zack's chest rotated suddenly, locking onto a new figure. Killer auto activation really is amazing, it even gives me strategies for fighting cockroaches. Without hesitation, he slammed his hand down on the symbol. Eradicating the cockroach army was something he could do in an instant. Ha ha ha. I'll eliminate you now with just one punch. Clancy let out a beast-like roar, lowering his cockroach-formed head. He saw a mass of red light on the ground. As the red light slowly dispersed, it revealed an alien covered in armor encrusted with barnacles. The terrifying part was that his head itself was a massive barnacle with glaring eyes, which had burst his helmet apart, scattering fragments around the grotesque form. Carnitrix variant. Water hazard. Can't find an image, guys. What kind of alien is this? Gwen looked at Zack, momentarily at a loss for words. Huh. He turned into another monster. Clancy was stunned for a moment, then grinned menacingly. His cockroach-swarming fist clenched tight. Looks like this one's easier to crush. He swung his heavy fist, smashing it down toward Zack. Zack slowly lowered his head, the huge barnacle mouth on his skull aiming straight at the oncoming punch. Boom. The barnacle's gaping maw spewed out a powerful torrent of water like a high-pressure cannon, instantly piercing through Clancy's massive cockroach fist. The heavy punch disintegrated into countless cockroaches. Some cockroaches were pulverized into dust by the water. Others, soaked and unable to fly, fell directly to the ground, writhing helplessly. Fly, fly. Clancy was both shocked and enraged, staring furiously at the cockroaches squirming on the pavement. Bang! Zack raised his hand again, and the barnacle on his palm unleashed another high-pressure water jet. This blast tore straight through Clancy's cockroach-formed head. Wow, that feels good. Zack lowered his hand in surprise, marveling at the raw force contained within the barnacle. One casual shot from me is like a cannon. Carnitrix variant. Water hazard's power was practically that of a humanoid, self-propelled artillery piece. I need more bugs. Clancy, with his incomplete, broken form, staggered toward nearby sewer manholes. Bang! Columns of water erupted from the barnacles on Zack's feet, propelling him upward with ease. As he took to the air, he continuously unleashed terrifying water jets, raining destruction down on Clancy's cockroach horde. Bang bang bang. Clancy's cockroach body was continuously struck, new gaps tearing open with every blast. Realizing this, his combat strategy shifted, from trying to gather more cockroaches to outright fleeing. Are you kidding me? No matter how many cockroaches he summoned, they were useless against Zack. What's going on? A giant monster being chased and beaten by another alien. Oh my god, did we accidentally stumble onto a movie set? Doesn't anyone else think that red alien looks super cool? On the street, bewildered passers-by watched the bizarre scene unfold with wide eyes. A massive cockroach creature, towering dozens of meters high and riddled with holes, was being chased down by Zack alone, forced to flee in a panic. Ah. Clancy's tone was full of despair, his will to fight completely shattered. Why is this alien so strong? He stumbled, staggered, and finally broke into the suburbs. The moment he crossed into the outskirts. Game over. Zack's eyes hardened as all the barnacles on his body opened at once, spewing jets of water. Rumble. The countless streams converged into a single massive torrent, coiling together until they formed a terrifying water dragon. With a deafening roar, the water dragon surged forward, crashing into Clancy's towering figure and unleashing a devastating flood. The torrent swept away tens of thousands of cockroaches, carrying them downstream until the entire surface was covered, forming a grotesque river full of bugs. The scene left the onlookers outside the suburbs stunned. What kind of water dragon jutsu is this? Done. Zack calmly walked through the rushing water until he stood before Clancy, who was kneeling in exhaustion. Do you have any other tricks? How can a mortal's power fight against a demon? Clancy's eyes were hollow, his voice broken, before he collapsed heavily onto the ground in complete surrender. Ding! The host has completely defeated Clancy, dispersing his antisocial personality. Progress +1. Template progress. 23/100. New unlock. Psychic Celestial Being Terraspin. Zack accepted the reward with satisfaction and released the completely drained Clancy. He was looking forward to obtaining the Andromeda aliens shown in Ben 10 Ultimate Alien. The next alien to be unlocked would definitely be NRG. If I can unlock Carnitrix NRG, defeating Vilgax won't be a problem. Suppressing his excitement, Zack calmed himself and headed back the way he came. After the police arrived, Clancy actually rushed into their patrol car of his own accord, clearly terrified of encountering Zack again. The rest of the day passed calmly and peacefully. In the meantime, Zack also practiced magic with Gwen whenever he had free time, helping her sharpen her combat power. As for Ben, he spent the entire day resting, hoping to recover fully from his cold by the next morning. The physique of people in a two-dimensional world really is ridiculous. Far away in outer space. Aboard a massive warship drifting through the stars. Inside the main hall of the spaceship, a panoramic display was broadcasting Earth's news. Clips of Zack and Ben were on full display. Several short videos filmed by random passersby showed Zack chasing Clancy in broad daylight, his battles spreading across the internet. There were also clips of Ben using XLR8 to chase after Hex, yet still stopping to grab a slushie from a roadside stand, which surveillance cameras conveniently caught on film. Azimuth's most powerful creations, it's actually being used as a tool for those two brats to play at being heroes. A domineering voice echoed from within a massive cylindrical cultivation pod. Lord Vilgax, a mechanical subordinate said respectfully, offering a suggestion, should we gather another batch of alien mercenaries, or manufacture another force of mechanical earthlings? No. The giant cultivation pod slowly opened. From within stepped a figure several meters tall, towering like a demon god. His muscular body radiated raw power, and as he raised his grotesque, flower-like head, a pair of crimson eyes gleamed with murderous intent. I will act personally. First, I'll crush that boy who wields Azimuth's secret weapon. As he spoke, Vilgax lifted one massive arm, its tree-trunk-thick muscles rippling with explosive power. He clenched his massive fist in rage, feeling the surging power within his body. Furthermore, dispatch the stored mechanical combat units to restrain the weaker shapeshifter. Capture those two in one fell swoop. His roar shook the vast spaceship hall. Yes, Lord Vilgax. The mechanical subordinate's voice was cold and metallic. I will command the mechanical units, and I will ensure the weaker shapeshifter is dealt with. This was a two-pronged operation aimed squarely at the Tennyson family. Thanks for watching.